What is happening, everybody? It's Newbie Good here, and welcome to my sort of commentary on what I feel about Strangers of Paradise, the Final Fantasy Origin trial that has been up on the PlayStation 5 for the last few days. I think it runs to the 25th of June, and I've played it quite extensively in that time, just to get a good feel of it, understand it. So I played through the whole thing on hard and defeated the final boss, as you'll see the videos on the channel. And I just wanted to give you my sort of opinions on what I thought of the game, where I think it needs to sort of improve, what it got right, and overall just how I, see tracking the game going forwards. In the background, you'll have me sort of playing through as the sort of Lancer, just because as I went through the main, I was more of a warrior, swordsman, and or a mage. So I just wanted to run through the game again with the sort of Lancer class, because again, I say, got to try and be fair across all and yeah, do that. So first things to say is you'll see in the background the gameplay. I just want to talk about the visuals of this, and you can tell, straight off that it's an early build. There's a lot of anti-aliasing, a lot of, as you move, sort of the lines coming down, sort of some of the scenery and stuff. And I think that, say it just needs a polish around there. And again, it's rough, and I had to crank the brightness settings quite a long way up just to see it on my laptop, and for you guys on YouTube to be able to get a better scene of it. So I think they just need to enhance it slightly there. But in terms of the overall sort of art style that they're going for, the aesthetics, really liked it. I really liked how they're setting it up in that sort of sense, and things like the battle system, the clinging of a few things as you're doing your soul barrier, and that sort of stuff. It, how that then particle effects are going, it looks really good. It just needs that refinement. So I'm not saying it's perfectly beautiful, even though the tutorial area did look really good. Yeah, it needs some refinement, but going by what they've delivered, and this is Team Ninja, so they did the Neo games. Yeah, I'm expecting good things about how they can turn this up. So visually, yeah, it is. You could tell it's an early build, but a little bit rough. But yeah, so far so good on that front. Now let's go on to sort of, for me, one of the main things that I look for in a game, and that is the gameplay. So one of the things that keeps you coming back to a game is how it feels. Does it resonate with yourself? And yeah, for me, this is solid. For the alpha build that this is, it's a trial. There's a survey at the end that you fill in, and you tell them what you liked and what you didn't like. What it is, and at the stage of development it's in, is really solid. It's when you attack, you feel like there's weight behind doing things. You're swinging your sword down, you can feel there's weight there. You charge it up, you can see him moving back, and then when it releases, it does significantly more damage. And for me, the battle to battle moments, the point to point battling, is really good. One thing I probably would say about the gameplay is, though, the actual combat system, so the button inputs you push, do the moves that you do, I thought worked really well. There's a couple of specifics that didn't, and I'll come on to them and I'll go through each of the classes. But one thing I did notice on, and I say I played this through on hard mode, was that my damage output was really low. It didn't feel, they felt bullet spongy, to put it to another word. And I felt that the equipment that I was using didn't really have a massive impact on dealing extra damage or reducing damage. So yeah, I think that's, whether that's the tuning for this trial, who knows. Other things about the gameplay that I really liked is when when there's a bomb, it spits fire at you, you can basically catch it, learn it, and then use it. Really love that system. It's that enemy skill type thing that you get from a Final Fantasy. Really like that, and say just hopefully there's a good array of them abilities. Now I think every single enemy that we fought had one, I can't remember the wolves if they had one or not. I can't off the top of my head. I don't remember learning one from there, but yeah, really like that. Other things about the gameplay is the switching between the two. So as I said, I went from a warrior and mage. Once you unlock the mage, switching between the two classes felt really good. You could do it quickly at the end of sort of doing your ability, or you could just switch by pushing, triangle. And yeah, it felt really good. It gave a lot of variety to how you can approach some things. So when I first came up to, in my first playthrough, there's the whole section with a load of bombs. When you become a mage, you can go back in and just absolutely obliterate them, and you can tell that if they do this right, they can balance certain areas for certain types of jobs. So if you're going to be a mage, you're going to get it easier at some points. And when other points, it's going to be a lance, it's going to be a bit easier, and other times a swordsman's going to be easier. So yeah, if they do it right, there's a lot there that they can do. One of the other things that stood out was the skill trees. It was really easy to level up. I think there's up to 30 levels per sort of class that you can burn through and level up really quickly. I either expect them to lower the amount of time that you can level up, or greatly expands the skill tree, and hope that there's enough diversity within them skill trees to make each one viable. So you've got your swordsman, which upgrades into the warrior, but still make it viable so that you can just do a swordsman. You're not forced to go into warrior to continue on through the game. But let's say for the alpha and the stage that it's in, I think it was really good. There's a couple of things like the stamina depletion when you're guarding or you're doing your soul, I think needs a little bit more refinement. And again, just the generalness around how spongy some of these enemies were, and just tweaking that type of piece to keep it a challenge yet still fluid and make it sort of progression sort of type. But if you're a fan of Neo, Dark Souls, I've heard people talk about Bayonetta. I've never played it, so I can't really comment on that, but definitely a Neo type Souls sort of type of game, with its own qualms and intricacies, which is hopefully will make it stand out in that Final Fantasy sort of setting. But yeah, just sort of other things like there's these little gloopy tree things that you have to sort of kill to unlock paths. Very heavy amounts of HP, and to one point in my Lancer playthrough, enemies started to respawn because I couldn't do enough damage with the Lancer at that point to just go through that. So let's talk about the sound and sort of general music of the game. So general sounds are really good. So that's the clanging of the swords in battles and that sort of stuff. And when you're blocking and doing that, that sounded great. But that's probably where the good stuff stops. The music seemed completely out of place and quite alien. It was really upbeat, and especially as you go into the castle and you get like the sort of the grand opening piece. It's really like upbeat, bang, bang, bang. But the character voices are quite somber, and it just didn't marry. So yeah, I think they just need to work on what music assets they're using where. Something a little bit more dramatic at that point probably would suit that scene. So yeah, just tweaking that slightly. In terms of voice acting, they don't really talk that much. There's no bromance like Final Fantasy 15. So I'm expecting maybe, they haven't done all the voice lines yet and all of that stuff, and then, not quite got to how they're going to do that storytelling. And it's going to be a fine balance, because one of my criticisms with Final Fantasy 15 is that becomes annoying really quick, that bromance between the two. And I'd like a bit more diversity. I don't know Final Fantasy 1 at all. It'd be nice to see a female protagonist in along them, just to break up that masculine sort of voices. So yeah, that's sound and music. Moving on to classes. So there's 3 base classes that you could use: Swordsman, the Mage, and the Lancer. and each one of them split it out again. So the swordsman turned into a warrior. I think a mage turned into a black mage, and a lancer turned into a dragoon, which still gave the same feel. So a warrior and a swordsman played basically the same. I think with a warrior you could only use a great sword, but a swordsman you could use a lance as well, or the other way around. So they still play the same, but they had different sort of abilities, and like the swordsman had his R2, and then the warrior had a war cry, which gave you a sort of a regen type effect. So yeah, of course there's different situations and everything like that, but the warrior and swordsman for me felt really satisfying. When you're using a great sword, there's massive weight behind there, and if you miss an attack you feel quite vulnerable. And going on to playing this, on release, it's probably the class I'll go with off the start. Mages. So you fight with a mace and a shield with a mage, and when you're attacking with that mace, or it's like a small club as well, I think there was, it felt really good, really quick, in out, dodging, quite highly maneuverable. And then you went on to spells, and cast a spell you have to stay static, and given the rest of the game is quite fast paced, being still to charge up your ATB gauge to increase the potency of a spell just felt, again, alien to what they were doing. If you got it to hit off, you got a hell of a lot of damage output, but because of how slow they are, you're trying to charge up for a better one, you're so open that you end up just being interrupted. So yeah, I think there needs to be some tweaking there just to make spell casting a little bit more viable in all situations. Like if you're fighting the wolves in moderate close proximity, you can only literally fire off your tier 1 spells. You can't charge them up at all. And selecting spells is a pain in the ass. You have to hold down R2, use your mouse, your stick, to select the spell that you want, and if you then move or jiggle at all, it selects a completely different element, and you're screwed. So yeah, but I think out of the 3 classes, a lot of work needs to be done just on spell casting on that one. And then you got onto the Lancer and Dragoon. Again, my one and only time through the game as a Lancer is being played behind me. But you get to roleplay Sid, right? So you got to love that. You got to love that. So I want some more of that, but it seems good. I like the range. I had some, even though the bats were weak against Pierce, it was quite difficult to hit them quick moving ones. And I'm guessing that's a balancing thing. Why would you hit a bat with a spear? But then why would you hit a bat with a massive sword just as easy? The other thing as well, once you unlock Dragoon, you get the ability to jump. So a la Freya in Final Fantasy IX. And I just found it clunky. It didn't track. It didn't have any range on it whatsoever. So maybe it's an unlock to, well, I know there's an unlock to increase range, but maybe gives better tracking or something like that on a Lancer and Dragoon. But yeah, it's one of the ones I didn't really play with much. But again, I loved them with a halberd on the back. They looked really good, and again, satisfying gameplay. So we'll go into sort of my final thoughts. So I don't want to keep this too long, but just an initial brain dump for you guys so you know what to expect. But given that this is an alpha and still in development, I think it's got a lot of promise behind it, and it's one that I'm definitely going to keep my eye on. It's, yeah, a couple of the quirks. Yeah, it's a bit weird, but yeah, definitely liked my time with it. The final boss is tough, and the hard is very tough. But once you learn his mechanics down, it becomes, especially phase 1 of it, really easy. And you can just plow your way through that. I can't really comment on the implications of the story. Never played Final Fantasy 1, so I can't comment on there, so apologies. And again, just with some improved visuals, some tighter refinements of the battle systems, I've got a funny feeling this is going to be really, really good game, and say definitely one that's I'll keep a very close eye on. And if there's another sort of a beta, then I'll pick that up and showcase that to you guys. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins. My name's Paul, aka New Get Good. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see some more of this. Say if there's a beta or the main game. All of that good stuff is mostly appreciated. But until then, stay safe, stay well, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.